Welcome back, folks, to the Via Pinstriping page. Today we're going to continue working on this multicolored scroll design. It is being done on a blank skateboard deck. This is the top part of the deck, and we're going to be using the Kafka number 1. I did do this red color with the Kafka number 3. I'm going to go for a little bit thinner lines this time and use the Kafka number 1, and we're using some alpha enamel orange. The first color was bright red, one shot. So I'm going to palette the brush, load the brush up with the next color, and with these large designs, it's sort of key that the next color somewhat contrast fairly well with the original color. And as you go with your various colors, you can go through the gambit of other contrasting or non-contrasting colors as you choose. Now with this brush, if I want to make these shapes, I kind of got to form them within various strokes. Or at least that's how I like to do it. Some folks don't need to. Now I have had some folks ask me how I feel about the alpha enamel, and to me the coverage is a little better, but it is a little bit thicker. So it's just a slightly different animal, but I reach for them both equally. Now these designs are generally ever evolving because they overlap so much that the direction in which they head kind of changes throughout the design. And the whole point of doing this is to sort of give you all an idea of what goes through making some of these really large scroll designs that I do. And for me, it's better if I wait for the colors to dry. I'm able to think about my next move. Sometimes I'll take a picture of the design and look at it throughout the week, or throughout the days that I'm not working on it. And with this particular design, I don't really have a single movement that I'm leaning towards. I'm just kind of, the idea is it's going to go outward. Now I am working from left to right. I am right-handed, so if I could just work one way, even though I'm probably going to bounce around, it is kind of helpful to keep my fingers out of wet paint. And also with these, you could sort of cross through the whole design if you want. See how that works. You give yourself a new starting point, sort of. A new anchor point for other elements. Now I notice there's some space here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take something that branches off of this, scrolls around, and kind of gives me a little fill in that space. For me, with these, more is more. It just, you kind of got to understand how to get to that point without it looking silly. But then again, that is opinionated, right? So sometimes it all looks funny until I'm finished. And even then, if you've been doing this any amount of time, you might still not like the end result. Look, I stuck my finger in that. Yeah. Oh, I'll fix it though. Let me clean off my finger. There's been plenty of times where I questioned what it was that I just did, and it become one of my most popular designs online where folks are just raving over it, and I absolutely can't stand it. But I think in your mind you might have like an idea of what you wanted to make, and if it doesn't quite look like that, sometimes it's a little disappointing. With these, they're really up in the air until I'm finished. One added element or not added element to the whole thing can make or break it, in my opinion. But they are very freeform, so it's in the eye of the beholder, I guess. Now, sometimes folks will say, oh, how do you get your lines so opaque? Well, sometimes I got to go over it twice, like I just did. um, when you really do end up with less opaque lines because you're using up a lot of paint on the very, very tip of the brush. So sometimes you end up with lines that are not quite as opaque as you would like. But if you get to where you're doing this quite often, you'll realize that sometimes you just got to go over the same lines twice. To get the desired result. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think I'm going to wipe that off for now. Currently, I would normally take it a lot further, but it's not on video, so maybe I'll do that in a different session. I'm not mixing any custom colors, so I can always go back and add to this. To me, that is the benefit to having a lot of different colors. You could just reach for them anytime you need them again, instead of trying to figure out what it was that you mixed. I'm going to make sure this is still in focus. Yeah, for the most part. Now this is a pretty dark orange. I will say in the video here it's looking a little pale, but I think that's what happens when you try to videotape fine lines. I don't have a cameraman. I've always done this by myself. Just kind of hang up my phone somewhere and rock it out. And it's rare that I get a chance to do step-by-step long form. Mostly because I don't have my workspace available like that as often as I would like. So let's continue. If you ever see a big glob of paint there and you're trying to get a sharp beginning, make sure you knock some of that paint off. Just dab it onto something. And I do want to get a sharp beginning here. I did actually see somebody, and I thought it was a pretty good idea. They got one of these blank skateboards to use as their practice board. So they've drawn some grid lines and they just erase it over and over and over and over. And it seems to work out pretty good for them. I was actually surprised at how well this black paint holds up to being reused. Plus, if you're done, you kind of got a pretty cool little canvas as if you want to keep it as something that you want to keep that you really enjoy. So I don't know if you noticed, but most of these little doodads, feather looking things, I'm kind of anchoring scrolls off of them. For me, that's kind of what I've learned from watching guys like Kafka, Bugs, Carlitos Alves, just watching what they do and studying their moves. I noticed that that's what they do. So just kind of taking what I see and trying to make it my own. Um, and trying to grow on the moves that they've already formulated. Which I think most pinstriping is. Just trying to upgrade what's already been done, if you can. All right, so let's see here. I want to see if I could anchor something out that goes like this, because I like. Let's see if it looks good. Now, I know some folks like a nice clean, simple design, and I do too. Sometimes less is more, but I find that when it comes to this online stuff and trying to grab folks' attention, which is sort of the point of YouTube, sort of the point of social media is to gather folks' attentions. You kind of got to go over the top. Although it takes a tremendous amount of work and discipline to be able to make a really nice, clean, simple design, it just doesn't catch people's eye as much as something wild and over the top. So I like the way those look. These could become anchors for other aspects. So it is sort of going a particular direction, which was unintended, but hey, you kind of got to go with the flow. Now I think I'm going to do another one of these right here, which all this stuff is as I go, loosely pre-planned, just because I've done them quite a bit. Like I said, I might take a picture of this, and you see that glob of paint? You can actually see that happening. I don't know if you can or not, but you can actually see that happening and avoid it and just use the very, very, very tip, but still understanding that that glob might fall at any time. Just another thing you get used to. If you over reduce, if you under reduce, you're going to move accordingly because you feel the paint consistency being just different, or maybe not ideal. It's not always ideal. So you move accordingly. You might not push as hard, or you might not go as long with the paint. Trying to keep my head out of the shot. Or say you feel like you're running out of paint, and you just go ahead and make that line thicker right there. Just because you're feeling like you're running out, if you push back down, you'll kind of reload the tip. I do hear a lot of folks tell me that they're working in the heat and they have a hard time with the heat. I'd say if you're just starting out, that's a huge disadvantage that you're giving yourself. I would say try to work in a climate controlled environment in the beginning before you try to give yourself. One of the biggest challenges is working against temperature problems, because air and temperature, humidity, all that's going to really affect your paint and the way it flows. So if you're just starting out, do yourself a favor, work in a climate controlled environment if you can. If need be, get yourself a little AC unit, a little window unit or something. So I currently like the way it looks, so that's good. I don't always like the way it looks. Let's see here. I do have a nice spot here for another one of these feather-ish designs. So let's see if I could throw one in there. Just trying to pepper the orange color around as much as I can. Because it kind of lends well to the red and gives me a good starting point for other colors. Let me make sure this thing's still filming. Yep. Now the phone camera there does tend to focus and unfocus on its own, so sometimes it gets a little blurry. So all this, I'm just trying to consider holes, gaps that I can fill, places where the design is lacking a little weight per se. So I notice I don't have anything here. I notice that there's kind of some space here. In the beginning with the first couple of colors, you really kind of want to set up finishing moves per se. Thinking about where you're going to go with it next. So I think I'm going to try to do another one of these. I like to sometimes double up on them, as I did there. Here I have two reds. Gives a little more weight. And you can make them thinner, you can make them thicker, however you feel. Here, let's make this one real thick, right? So watch, I'm going to go real far out. And that's going to be a very thick feathery kind of look. Now, because this is such a small brush and I'm doing it at a funny angle, I'm kind of just forming the outside and filling it in, forming the outline of it. See, again, I got a big droplet of paint here. I'm going to show you. I'm working on the very tip, right? But if I push down hard enough, I'll get that, because there's a droplet just waiting to come off the brush. I was holding it off the whole time. But this is something that you gotta consider. If you push down, if I push down past a certain point, the thing's just gonna blow out on me. And you get used to controlling that brush in that manner, depending on the brush. Some brushes, for me, don't hold that droplet very well, and that's more or less just me over reducing. Again, it's, these are things that you just have to learn how to control as you develop your own manner of pinstriping. Things that just become apparent to you as you learn throughout the years. Now with this whole color and what I'm doing with this orange, all I did was lay down a little droplet of paint about this big, so I've not had to drop any more paint out of the bottle. See the Tidwell orange alpha enamel. I basically just dropped a little paint about the size of this cap, and I've done all this on that amount of paint. And I do reach for them equally. I will say it seems as if there are colors that I really like with alpha enamel. There's colors that cannot be replaced with One Shot. One Shot has processed blue, which I've yet to find anything like that. Alpha enamel has a really nice hot rod gen green, which One Shot does not. So, they all have their nice colors that you may or may not like. And eventually I'm going to develop myself a list of the colors I want to reorder. Currently I'm fine on the paint, but at some point I'm going to need to reorder. Now, if you consider the way my circles are going, sometimes they just kind of, they're somewhat uniform, right? And then sometimes they have a real sharp turn. A big circle, sharp turn, big circle. Big, little, big, little. So those are things that I sort of consider the bounce to the way it feels. And these things can give you a more aesthetically pleasing look when it comes to this. They're not all just the same size circles over and over and over. It fills in where it needs to. And let's see if I can come up with something. I'm stalling because I'm trying to figure out how I want to do this, but I know that I'm going to anchor something off here, so let's see if I could do something. Kind of a funny angle here. So I'm going to go out, come back in. And push down. See, and again, this is, it did get kind of light on me here. I'm probably just going to go over that. Kind of went a little heavy on me here, but, these things happen. Like I said, it's not a perfect form. And you know what? I'm not going to risk hitting that corner, so I'm just going to see if I can pick it up here. And lightly go across this one line. It skipped on me. I went a little too fast. It might not show on camera, but I assure you it is there. If you ever end up with like a blotch, there's just a slight little blotch there. It's very minuscule, but you can always put a dot there, and there's ways of covering little mistakes. But be careful. You get started with a dot, you end up with dots all over the place, and it looks silly. Looks like it's been bedazzled. So dots are one of those kind of it's either done tastefully or not. There is somebody that I'm going to be doing a video on soon, Clarky. his use of dots is just phenomenal. He uses a lot of dots, but the way he uses them, just it's beautiful. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. So shout out to Clarky. Hopefully I'll get started on that video soon. It's going to be another artist spotlight. I've only done one so far, and I try to get permission from these guys before I do anything. And let's see here. I'm going to try to make this a little nicer. It's kind of choppy at the end, so I'm just going to smooth it out. That is probably my thickest element. Maybe these two. So I'm feeling pretty good about the orange. I can always come back and add more. I'm trying to think if there's anywhere else. Maybe I could put something like this inside of here to balance it out some. So let's try that. I'm not gonna cross this line, so if in case I don't like it, I can wipe it off easier. I am running a little bit thin on paint, but I don't want to put out any more. So I'm gonna do what I can. So when I do these, they do have a slight S shape to them. So it curved inward. Now I'm going to curve outward just a hair. And I'll do another one to follow it up to match this one. And it is a way to sort of gain a little symmetry throughout the entire design. Even though this is an asymmetrical design, balance is still key. Balance is always key with this, with any sort of pinstriping. It's all about balance, folks. All right, done with the orange. This is the second color. Usually the second color with these, you do want them to contrast with the original one enough to where it's bold. If not, the secondary loops will not be seen. So keep that in mind. But if you're going to be doing multiple colors, you don't want it to be your most bold color yet. You want that to be done towards the end or last, because you know that's something you pepper in here and there to not overdo the entire design. So that's my take on it currently, and this is going to be done in stages, so expect some more videos, and thank you all for watching. I do have lists underneath in the description to Amazon, where you can find a lot of the materials that I use, and if you were to purchase anything through them links, I do get a small commission, so it's a great way to help the channel. I try not to promote that too much just because, I don't know, it feels a little grimy. But hey, man, you know, helps keep the lights on. There's that, and make sure you subscribe, try to share. Oh, and there's a big announcement coming up soon. Some of y'all have try to make a video on it as soon as I get the most amount of pictures and videos and everything that I can to help promote the situation. So thank you all so much for watching, and have a good day.